no shortage of expensive audio gear, and big-name brands seem adamant about marketing their next big-priced product. Audeze, Sennheiser, Aston Kern, Focal, these brands are well known for their costly creations. Meze Audio is no stranger to this either. These guys make only a handful of products, but they have a clear separation of their affordable versus luxury lines. Today, we take a look at one of Meze's most recent luxury headphones, the Liric 2. These cost between $1,800 and $2,000 depending on where you get them and whether they're used. Meze Audio was kind enough to let me borrow this headphone for a review. Let's see what it can do. The Liric 2 is a planar magnetic headphone, which Meze says is an altered sound from the original Liric. The company says that the new headphones have a warmer, fuller sound compared to the original version. Meze licensed a patented driver design from Dan Clark Audio to help attenuate some pesky high frequencies over 7 kHz. This is the quarter wavelength resonator mask, or QWRM. QWRM. This might be an interesting method of strategically adjusting some frequencies through a physical component rather than electronic retuning of the driver itself. The drivers, of course, are Meze's own. As for physical design, the Liric 2 is almost note for note like the original. The standout obvious difference is the wood used on the ear cups. Meze says this is ebony, and it does have a characteristic pattern. The original Liric had simple black ear cups. The other big difference is the Liric 2's ear pads. These are now magnetic, while the original versions were glued on. You would have to peel off the original Liric's ear pads, much like how you have to do with audeze and hifi man. The magnetic headphone attachment system is far more aesthetically pleasing, more luxurious, but also more costly. Arguably, with the glue system that you could easily attach alternative ear pads that fit. With the new magnetic system, you have to spend premium prices for very limited access to the proprietary ear pads, or perhaps carefully disassemble the magnetic system and place it on an alternative ear pads that happen to fit the Liric 2. Those are the only two visible changes between the new version of the Liric and the original Liric. The headband, yoke, cable, and overall build are quite similar, if not the same. The wood ear cups don't seem to add much weight to the design. The ear pads are as comfortable on the Liric 2 as they are on the original headphones. The headband on both headphones perfectly conforms to the top of the head and causes very little pressure. In short, the Liric 2 is a beautifully designed headphone, just like the rest of Meze's lineup of products. This company spends lots of time thinking about how their gear looks and feels, which is an important part of luxury products. I tested the Liric 2 for over a month as one of my go-to headphones. I paired it with my EcoZerta ITM03, Low-2-Paw S1, Low-2-Paw 6000, Matrix Mini-I Pro 3, the RME 80i2 DAC, and directly into my audio jacks of those devices that still have them. Not a very long list. I listened to my standard lossless FLAC test playlist, streamed lossless music on Amazon Music HD, lossy content on Spotify and YouTube, and consumed a wide variety of other material, including movies and TV shows. I conducted A/B comparisons against the original Liric, the Audeze LCD4Z, the LCD XC, and the Focal Stellia. The Liric 2 does not have a bassy signature, far from it. If you've listened to Meze's 99 classics, then you know what this company can do with warm, bassy signatures. The Liric 2 is not that. I would call the bass marginally elevated on this headphone, but frankly mostly clear. Sub-bass has a roll-off similar to a lot of planar magnetic headphones. Transients on the Liric 2 is quick, just like on other planars. Separation between mid-bass and sub-bass is quite apparent here, with little to no muddiness. Mountains by Hans Zimmer is a good track to test the sub-bass quality and clarity of any headphone. Here, the Liric 2 did present the sub-bass rumble, but only at a moderately high volume. When the crescendo hit at the middle of the track, the Liric 2 was able to separate most of the instruments, and the bass did not overwhelm any of them. Mid-bass impact is hard, but not sharp. Drums sound close to the ears, but almost a little blunted. Think of a thin sheet draped over a large speaker, absorbing some of the sound energy, and you kind of get the idea. The LCD4Z has similar bass response to the Lyric 2. Clarity here probably is slightly more obvious on the 4Z. Transients, however, are similar. Drums sound a little bit sharper on the 4Z. The Stelia has greater bass overall than the Lyric 2. There's more audible sub-bass with the Stelia and harder mid-bass on the Stelia. Separation and clarity in the bass region, however, is more obvious on the Lyric 2. The original Lyric has a bit more bass than the second version here. The original headphones have more sub-bass emphasis by perhaps a few decibels at least, and clearly not requiring as much volume from the amplifier as the Lyric 2 to get that sub-bass rumble. Drums sound a little bit harder and a little bit sharper on the original Lyric. The Audeze XC had quick bass transients just like the other planar headphones I tested. However, sub-bass was rolled off a bit more obviously on the XC than on the Lyric 2. On the other hand, separation of sub-bass and mid-bass and overall bass clarity seemed just a little bit more clear on the XC. Drum strikes on the XC were considerably harder, sharper, and more piercing than on the Lyric 2, especially when you give this Audeze headphone a lot of power. The mids on the Lyric 2 are clear, slightly forward of instruments and have a marginal sibilance emphasis. Orla Gertland's Why Am I Like This is a good track to listen for that sibilance and vocal grain and to determine how a particular headphone renders vocal placement, so give that audio track a try. The Lyric 2 presented Orla's voice consistently ahead of the instruments, including the drums. Her voice never got peaky or harsh, even with the slight sibilance emphasis that this headphone provides. In Haim's Want You Back, the Lyric 2 separated the three vocalists and I heard their individual voices quite easily. Even when all the instruments played at maximum, I could just about pick out the various vocals, though they did tend to blend together at that point. I think it's safe to say that the Lyric 2 slightly nudges vocals forward, keeps them as the focus of the track, but not to the extent that they appear shouty or harsh or simply unnaturally emphasized. The LCD4Z is noticeably different. The 4Z has greater emphasis of vocal grain and sibilance, which is a characteristic of Audeze's sound signature. There's a perception of greater mid-centric clarity on the 4Z, but that might be the byproduct of vocals sounding closer to the ears and a bit more shouty. The bass on the 4Z never drowns out the vocals, by the way. The Stelia also has greater emphasis of sibilance and vocal grain than the Lyric 2. This push is not quite as prevalent as it is on the LCD4Z. Bass has more bleed into the mids on the Stelia than on the Lyric 2. This results in slightly greater mid-centric clarity on the Lyric 2. The XC has a very different mids presentation. It emphasizes sibilance the most out of all the headphones I compared in this review. Sibilance can become really harsh with this headphone depending on the track. On the other hand, the XC does have the perception of more clarity than the Lyric 2. That perception melts away when multiple vocalists and instruments are mixed into a track. For example, in Want You Back by Haim, the XC did not allow me to hear the three vocalists any more clearly than the Lyric 2 when the instruments played at maximum. The original Lyric has a slightly different presentation of mids compared to the new Lyric. The original has a slight sibilance emphasis, just like the new headphone, but the new headphone also has a bit more vocal grain emphasis, where the original doesn't. The original Lyric also has a bit less clarity in the mids overall. Vocals tend to appear shoulder to shoulder with instruments on the original headphone, while on the newer Lyric, those vocals stand a step or two ahead. Overall clarity in this region is a bit more obvious on the new Lyric. The Lyric 2's treble is smooth, but not necessarily neutral. Brass and horns, orchestral group sets, guitars, saxophones, pianos, you name it, the Lyric 2 always rendered these instruments rather clearly. As long as the track was properly recorded, and irrespective of what genre, the Lyric 2 never seemed to overemphasize the treble frequencies of those instruments that fall into that range. However, after repeated listening sessions, I got the impression that there's a marginal upper treble roll-off with the Lyric 2. This might be most evident when listening to well-mastered classical or orchestral tracks. The LCD4Z has very similar treble to the new Lyric. Both headphones have a generally neutral rendition, but in comparison, it seemed that the 4Z had slightly greater push in the mid to upper treble region. This never caused the 4Z to sound harsh or piercing for this reason, but treble clarity did seem to be marginally greater on the 4Z overall. The Stellia also has a mostly neutral treble rendition. Both the Lyric 2 and the Stellia seem to have similar clarity in this region, but I would say that the Stellia has a bit more mid to upper treble energy than the Lyric 2. Nevertheless, the Stellia's treble did not seem to be quite as clear as what I heard on the LCD 4Z. The XC has a noticeable emphasis in treble compared to the new Lyric. The XC has more energy in the upper treble or the mid treble for sure, and frankly, given the XC the appearance of greater extension and clarity as a result. While the XC doesn't sound harsh with treble instruments, it does render them closer to the ears and could cause fatigue more quickly than with the Lyric 2. Finally, when we turn to soundstage and clarity, we have to take a few teaspoons of salt as a prerequisite. First and foremost, forget the audiophile myth that paying more gets you more soundstage or more clarity or more detail or more anything. Money is not the factor here. The Lyric 2 is not, by a long shot, a headphone that compares to the likes of the HD800S in soundstage, clarity, or detail. Nor is it close in the same regard to the Focal Clear. And in fact, the Austrian Audio Hi X55 and X65 headphones that are substantially cheaper soundly beat the Lyric 2 in soundstage, clarity, and detail. So, don't walk into the Lyric 2 thinking you're about to experience soundstage or detail like never before. Instead, think of the Lyric 2 as having a moderate soundstage, larger than that of the HD600 series, greater than the Audeze LCD1. But it's not as wide as the hifi Meze. Rather, I would put the Lyric 2 soundstage on par with the original Lyric, if maybe a little bit wider. The Stellia and LCD XC have soundstage similar to that of the Lyric 2. The LCD 4Z has marginally wider soundstage than the rest of the headphones I tested here. As for detail retrieval, once again, the Lyric 2 is no HD800S, Focal Clear, or Austrian Audio. You will not get details shoved into your ears. But, generally speaking, the Lyric 2 presents obvious and subtle details quite well. Electric buzzing effects, creaking of wood, sharp intakes of breaths, multiple vocalist twangs of guitar strings, the thumping of a palm on the guitar's body, gravelly vocals like that of Guy Clark. All of these sounds are easily audible on the Lyric 2. But this could be said for the other headphones I compared against as well, so there's really no significant difference whatsoever among all these expensive headphones where detail is concerned. In my new light footstep test, the 4Z rendered 10 cleared footsteps, the Stellia presented 7 to 8, the XC rendered 9, and the original Lyric provided 7 to 8 as well. The Lyric 2 presented 8 to 9 clear footsteps. As I said, in reality, when you're just enjoying your music, or trying to anyway, you'll be hard-pressed to find obvious differences in detail among these headphones. The fact of the matter is that these companies are all aiming for a particular sound signature, which is not about detail retrieval. If you want detail and soundstage, and that is the primary focus of why you want a headphone, you have other options. Not very many, but others. For example, the HD800S, the Focal Clear, and any one of the Austrian Audio headphones. When you look for headphones in the $1,000 and above price category, you're not really looking for ultimate sound quality. Sorry to put it so bluntly, but expensive headphones don't get you expensive sound. There's no such thing as expensive sound. Forget the whole fanboyism. There's subjectively bad sound, just as there's subjectively good sound. But that's true for every headphone, no matter the cost. You do not need to spend anywhere near the price of a Lyric 2. You can achieve blissfully amazing sound from a variety of far cheaper headphones depending on your personal preferences for sound signature. But really, that's not what Meze is going after. At least I don't think. This company is more about the overall experience. Unlike some other brands who claim a comical amount of amazing sound qualities from the higher echelon price bracket of their offerings, Meze merely tells you that their gear is a luxury product. And it's hard to get more luxurious than Meze. The Lyric 2 is built impeccably. The attention to detail is patently obvious. The company seems to have found a good balance between build, comfort, and materials, something that competing companies such as Audeze, Hi-Fi Man, Head Audio, and Sennheiser seem to struggle with. So, in my view, the Liric 2 is a beautifully crafted headphone that has a very pleasant sound signature. Personally, I enjoyed the sound signature of this headphone and what it has to offer. It's not a huge departure from the original, which I purchased and have, but there's a noticeable evolution here. This is indeed a warmish, neutralish signature, similar to what Meze claims in their marketing. Whether you will enjoy the Liric 2 is, you guessed it, a personal matter. If you're in the market for a new, expensive headphone, I think the Liric 2 is as great a choice as almost anything else out there. This is not a transformative headphone. It's not a revolution. But it is uniquely Meze.